Hello, this is Ashley Danielle from ashleydanielle.com, your psychic intuitive manifestation mentor. I want to share some tricks to releasing resistance to receiving your desires. So it sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? Like, I want this thing, right? Like I have desires, I want something. So like money, relationship, um, whatever it is. And you're thinking, I don't have any resistance to this, right? Like, why would I have resistance to receiving my desires? That's stupid. And a big reason why people don't have what they want, the reason why you don't have what you want, and I see this a lot in my clients and myself, honestly, is because we have resistance to receiving it. Like if you want a lot of money, you might be afraid or not trust yourself to have that kind of money. If you want to have a healthy relationship, you might be scared of being vulnerable with somebody, right? Or you might be afraid of abandonment. You might have abandonment wounds, right? All the different things. A lot of the time, resistance can be sneaky, right? So like you might not even notice that you're doing these things. And so having outside perspective, which is why like I pretty much always have a coach that I work with, because when we're in it day in and day out, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no resistance, but somebody can see like, oh, like your inner child is, and this is one of the things I'm really good at is being like, your inner child does not feel safe receiving money because XYZ for whatever reason is coming up for you. So, what are some tricks to release resistance to receiving? Well, the first thing, which I have my notes here like always. I didn't even write this down, but it's like, oh, having an awareness, right? Like having an awareness of that this is a thing, right? So you might not know why you're resisting, but just know that it's possible, right? Like if I am doing the work and I'm not manifesting, I'm not creating, I don't have what it is that I want. One of the reasons probably likely that I have resistance. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. Just being like, okay, I clearly have resistance to receiving. Okay, shit, right? And then you can like journal and you can do work, right? You can journal, you can meditate, you can do different things to like get to the root of it, or work with somebody like me that can help you like suss it out, like dig it out of your subconscious of like what's happening. But if you just have the awareness that you're doing this, it really makes it so much easier to do the following things, right? So the next thing is this is the biggest thing, and it's simple, but it's not easy, right? And that is developing self-trust, trusting yourself, right? It's one of those things where you don't, most people don't have built-in self-trust because we've been, okay, the way that they're showing me is like the way that we've been beat down, the way that we've been programmed is to not trust ourselves, right? Like we need outside opinions, we need outside advice, we need somebody outside of us telling us how it's supposed to go, or external validation, all of that. But developing self-trust is not necessarily like I trust myself to always get what I want, but it's like I trust myself to be able to handle it when I don't get what I want, or when things don't seem like they're working out in my favor, when it doesn't feel like it is safe, or when it doesn't feel like things are good, right? And it's like I've developed self-trust. I trust myself to handle good things, to handle the shitty things, and to persevere. I don't know why that word's coming out, but somebody needs to hear that. It's and it's something that takes time and practice developing self-trust. And the other piece to the self-trust is developing your intuition. Everybody is intuitive. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody has a level of intuitiveness, and it's a skill, right? It's something that you can practice and make better, make stronger. And when you develop your intuition, it like goes hand in hand, like it's not hand in hand, that's hand in hand, but it goes hand in hand with self-trust, right? So I trust myself because, well, it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons why I have really strong self-trust is because I've honed and honed and honed my intuition, right? So like I trust that I can release. I trust that, and it's not like it's not perfection, right? Like I'm not always like, oh, I'm so self-trusted. Like sometimes I'm like, fuck, I'm scared, right? But more times than not, I'm like, I trust myself. I trust that I don't have to overthink and worry and like ruminate on things because I know that my intuition is going to tell me if something is scary. That's not the word. If something is amiss, right? Like if, somebody walks into the room, I don't have to be like scanning them up and down and making sure that they're not a threat. I mean, sometimes I still do that. It just is a trauma response. But it's like I can sit and relax and know that my intuition is going to be like, look, pay attention. This person is not safe, right? And so strengthening your connection to your intuition is fucking key. It is key. Whether you want to consciously create, consciously manifest, receive more and better, it doesn't matter. Like if you can build and develop and harness your intuition, it will help with your self-trust because it's like we're all on board. We all, we're all like me, all of my bodies, my spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional bodies are all like ready to go, right? The next thing is, oh, this is good. This is good. Notice it's good. Like something about me is I'm gonna over explain. I so what I do when I get ready to film these videos is I channel, right? Like I'm like, what am I gonna I have an idea of what I'm gonna talk about and I start writing notes so that I can make sure that I stay coherent. And then I leave it and then I'll come back just because that makes it easier for me to not feel overwhelmed. So I was like, oh, that's good. But it's like I wrote it. Okay. So noticing how you already have everything you desire right now. Talk about taking the pressure off. Whew, talk about taking the pressure off, right? So okay, so I've talked about this in previous videos and I'm going to keep talking about it because it's so fucking important. Okay, let's say, I talk about money a lot, but let's say you are desiring a relationship or a bettering of your relationship, right? Like maybe perhaps you are already married and you're like, I want deeper connection, whatever. Or if you want to call somebody new in or just somebody, whatever, if you want to be in a relationship. See, I over explain. I'm like, let me put out all of the different ways that this could show up for you. No. Okay. What is it that you want, right? Like, okay, so I want a partner or I want my person to come through or whatever. Some people are like, oh, I want to be married. Not me, but noticing how you already have everything you desire right now. And you're like, okay, but Ashley, I don't have my person. My person's not here. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't actually have it. And it's like, okay, so why do you want this? Well, I want to feel connected. I want to have connection. I want to feel safe. Like for me, and the people that come in my world, it starts with like safety and security. I want to feel safe and secure, safe and secure, safe and secure. So I want to have connection. I want to feel safe. I want to feel secure. I want to feel love. Like I want to give and receive love in a way that is healthy and not like manipulative or toxic, right? And it's like, okay, so do you see where you have these things already? Connection, like, do you have friendships? Do you have connections with friendships? Do you like have hobbies where they're showing like going bowling for some reason, but it's like, do you have hobbies where you go out and do things and then like there's connection with other people? And do you have safety and security within yourself? Do you have safety and security in the connections that you have with friends or with family? Love, like, can you, I hate this, like this whole thing around you have to love yourself before you can love somebody else. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about when I say this part is like, do you have how do I say it in a way that's not So what I was gonna say is, do you have the capacity to feel love? Which sounds kind of fucked, right? But for example, for me, I have children. Like my heart just explodes with love for my children. And so it's like, of course I have capacity for love. Okay, so you already have it, right? And this is like some people with their, if you have pets and ways that you have and express love that doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily romantic, right? So it's like, do you have capacity for this currently? Do you have people in your life that you love? Do you love yourself? Again, I don't subscribe to you have to like be head over heels in love with yourself before you can find and receive love. I think that it definitely can help, but it's whatever. That's not what we're talking about. But can you see how you already have everything you want right now, right? And it's like, okay, but I don't have the man, I don't have the woman, I don't have my partner, right? And it's like, okay, but like you're limiting your ability to receive by not fully receiving what you already have. And if when you break down what it is that you want into the feelings, the sensations in your body that you expect to have when you have the thing, then it like you're just a fucking magnet to it, right? So let's say with money, right? It's again safety and security. Like if I wanted to manifest like $10,000, right? How would I think that I would feel when I receive it? Well, first I want to feel safe, I want to feel secure, I want to have freedom, I want to pay my bills. Okay, so when I pay my bills, how would I feel? Relief, right? And so it's like, can you feel these things now? You already have these things now. Therefore, that makes it easier to release the resistance on receiving because you're like the tension is not going to be there as strong, right? So for example, if you're like, okay, but I want $10,000 or whatever amount of money, and you're like, yeah, but I don't have that now. When is it going to come? How am I going to receive it? And it's like this energy of like the visual that I always get is like a hose, like a garden a garden hose with water running I get it. I'm a little silly. So a garden hose with water running through it. And if you're like, oh my God, how am I gonna pay my bills and blah, 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 yes, it's perfect. It's fine. Like there's no shame here. Like this is just what it is to live in the society we live in. Okay. So that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is when you're in that energy of I don't like this word, but like desperation, you're like kinking the water hose. You're kinking it. So like no fucking water can come through. And it's again, it's like counterintuitive. Yeah, but I need it, right? Like I need it. I have to have it. Okay. Let's take a step back. And I've said this before and I will say it, my most successful clients are always the ones that make everything count, right? So it's like, I want to receive $10,000. They find pennies and they're like, oh my God, I found a penny. I found 10 pennies this week. Make every single fucking thing count. Um, they're showing me in like dating how that shows up, but I think you'll understand when whatever. Make it count. Make every single thing count. See how you are already receiving. They're showing like with due dates and like sometimes you can like change your due dates and things like this where your perspective is shifting where it's like, oh, I already have space. I already have room for potential possibilities. In noticing what you already have or ways that you're already receiving, it takes the pressure off, even just a little bit. It takes the charge around receiving. It just like turns it down a bit, which is like unkinking the hose and allowing water to flow more, they're like more forcefully, more fully. And even if you like still have like one kink, at least it's not like all kinked and wrapped, right? Like if the flow is uh if the flow of water is able to move through even at a slower speed, at least it's moving through, right? And then you're like, holy shit, the water's coming. And then it's like, oh, that releases even more and that releases even more. So noticing where you already have or where you're already receiving the thing that you desire in ways that you were not noticing before. And this is another thing where it's like it's really helpful to have somebody else outside of your brain to reflect back to you ways that you are already receiving that we don't think that like that you're not thinking about, because when you're in it, it can be difficult to be like, oh, holy cow, I am receiving. If you're dating, you're like, oh, this, I got, okay. The intuition piece is like, oh, I got the urge to download a different dating app. And oh my gosh, there's like completely different people on this dating app, right? So like all of these different things where it's like opening the flow of receiving and releasing the resistance. The number one thing here is changing your perspective so that you can release resistance. The final thing that I will say is it takes practice. And the more that you practice these things, the easier it becomes. It is simple. Manifestation, using your intuition, receiving is so simple, but it is not necessarily easy. But it gets easier the more that you do it, the more that you practice. And it's like, I was talking about this with a client. It's like, I don't want to practice. If I'm not instantly perfect at it, I don't want to fucking do it, right? But practice, and it's not practice where you're like, okay, time to practice. It's moment to moment living in the here and now and opening yourself up to seeing things differently, opening yourself up to receiving in new and sometimes surprising ways will make the process go much more quickly the more that you do it, right? So practice. I would love to hear any comments or questions that you have below in the comments. I hope that this was helpful.